Hello, my good people. I think we've all looked up at the stars and wondered about life out of our reach. The galaxy is so big that we can't be the only planet with life on it. Due to this, people have definitely made aliens a big part of pop culture, and animation is no exception. Almost every famous cartoon has had aliens in it, I feel like, so I figured why not make a top 10 list about it, especially since my avatar here is a cartoon alien. Before we get started, let me give some rules. Besides the obvious, it has to be an animated show, and they have to be from another planet. I'll say this, one per series, and I feel like they all have to be treated as aliens in universe, meaning any show that takes place in another planet with them as a dominant species won't count. Another rule is that they have to have originated from the animated series, so no characters that came from comic books first, or any characters that managed to look ridiculously human despite being alien. Anyways, onto the list. Also, one more thing. Apparently, my top 10 videos could be considered too long for some people, so this time I'm gonna split the video into two parts. Tell me what you all think. Krang from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. I know the Ninja Turtles originally started off as a comic, but this character made his debut in the cartoon first, so he counts. While this character has had some different interpretations over time, he's mostly stayed consistent with what he's supposed to be like. A brain-like creature that wants to take over the world. Well, he's a simple character with a simple design, sort of. What I like about him is that even though Krang is arguably one of the most basic villains in the series overall, he's also entertaining and somewhat oddly likable character whose banter with other characters is actually funny, and has some pretty interesting lore about him and his race. Also, his voice is always fun to hear. Either he be voiced by Gilbert, or talking like a snotty nerd. His technology is pretty cool and varied, and I just like how they managed to add something new to every incarnation of this character. I would talk more about him, but the different incarnations of the characters are pretty different from one another. The first 10, well, Ben 10 aliens. I'll admit I haven't really seen a whole lot of Ben 10, but from what I've seen, it's a creative and exciting series with some heart and humor. Anyways, the main thing the show has going for it is the many extraterrestrial beings our main hero encounters, which he can then scan and take the form of, with each one having a unique ability and power. These creatures included the power to have super speed, strength, and even flammability. I also like how, depending on which form Ben takes, his voice and personality to an extent change on the alien he's become. Each of these aliens, from Four Arms to Grey Matter, possibly my favorite, to Ghost Freak, have interesting origins and personalities. As the sequel series came about and they introduced more and more aliens, but I'm talking more about the original Ben 10 since that's what I know most about. Though Alien X seems pretty cool. Mark Chang from Fairly OddParents. Definitely one of the better examples of a minor villain becoming a more prominent character on the show off the side of good. Well, sort of. Basically, in the first episode he appeared in, he's treated as a threat and a hostile creature since Timmy wished for an alien. It's a long story. But in a later episode, since Timmy was the only human who knew about his race, and due to the fact that he had magic, could help him with his little problem. From that point on, they became friends, and he decided to spend his life on Earth disguised as a human. It's pretty rare that a show focusing mostly on wackiness has an overarching plot, but Fairly OddParents did, and they did it well. What I like about Mark is how he and his people are fans of anything gross and nasty, while cute and nice things are potentially dangerous to them, which is why he had a problem with rabbits overruling his planet. It's interesting to see a character who was presented as a typical evil villain, who also became the friend of the hero, and this wasn't over a few episodes. It took some seasons, so viewers were kinda used to him being a baddie. I like how he's seen as an outcast in school, though Timmy is still willing to be his friends with him, despite his love of nasty stuff. You can't be mad at him since sweetness literally weakens him. Also, I do feel bad for him since he's always being chased by his forced girlfriend who wants him dead. It's a long story. Kang and Kodos from The Simpsons. Who doesn't look forward to seeing these two just about every Halloween? Well, they are obviously typical alien invaders who usually play an antagonistic role, as they often want to destroy or take over the Earth. They manage to be legitimately funny, and even kinda threatening at times. Heck, if the show looked more realistic, they'd be pretty horrific. Their stories are often non-canon since they mostly appear in the Halloween episodes, so they can go pretty out there with the stories they appear in, such as the one where they turn out to be the real father of Maggie, or the one where they befriend Bart in a E.T. parody. These two have appeared in some non-Halloween specials, usually in smaller roles, but they usually get a good laugh. Also, it's kinda nice they do show a softer side sometimes. While these characters aren't really deep, and could be seen as cliche, it's just their humor and storylines that make them who they are. Roger from American Dad. An alien living with a patriotic family due to the dad's job with the FBI, and he manages to be the best character on the show. His flamboyant personality, his backstory, and his overall humor makes him a joy to watch anytime he's on screen. Another thing I like about him is that since he's a creature from outer space, Roger is basically given stories that feel less political and based in American culture than, say, Stan Smith. Don't get me wrong, he's definitely a funny character as well, and I do like the episodes revolving around him, but Roger adds more variety to the show's storylines. Like the episode that involves him going on an outer space adventure and meeting other members of his race. Also, it's hard not to feel bad for him due to how he can legitimately not do too many nice things, otherwise he dies. Yeah, it's part of his species. He has to have an amount of bitchiness to him. Overall, a pretty fun and entertaining character, even though he's a bit of a pervert and kinda creepy sometimes. And that's the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed this, and be tuned for part 2. Also, tell me what you think. Do you prefer I do it like this? Or would you prefer it if I just do my top 10s in one video? Tell me in the comments.